Hey y'all. Hey y'all. so, happy Tuesday. Um, while you are coming into the room, make sure you let me know that you are coming into the room. Hey King BJ, hey Bruce the boss. So, this notification is going to be going out any second now, and more people will be coming in. But hopefully everyone is doing well and your week is off to a good start. And most of you are probably going to be having a even better week, seeing your family and eating some good food later this week. But anyway, while we're talking about that, if you want to go ahead and jump early on your Black Friday, I now have unicorns, fairy dust, and AR-15 type of girl, as well as all of my merch 30% off over on RhondaMary.com. So grab your anti-status tee. Entertainers are not leaders. Um, there's no freedom without medical freedom. And then I have these and some other stuff. So make sure you go over there to RhondaMary.com. There's an automatic discount, 30% off at checkout. All right, y'all. So uh let's talk about what's going on right now, okay, with the whole free speech thing. And I thought I put my banner up here, but I didn't. But anyway, we're gonna move on. My cover photo. But uh a couple of days ago on Twitter. So before I even get to this, right? There's been this back and forth struggle that has been going on. I know you guys have been seeing some of the things that originally started with Kanye West and some of the things that he was saying. Uh, kind of started with like the White Lives Matter shirt, and that kind of grew into, oh, well, in my business dealings with Jewish, I suppose I can still say that word on YouTube. You never know these days. Um, Business owners, people in my circle, I'm having these issues that spiraled into, Kyrie Irving putting up a link to a documentary. Both of these things have caused outrage, okay? Kanye West has, for the most part, apologized, I think, and recanted or not rehashed, but maybe kind of reworked some of his statements. Kyrie Irving has now apologized, maybe even more than once. They tried to recently make him speak for, or maybe even apologize on the behalf of Hebrew Israelites that showed up outside of the recent stadium where he was going to be playing. And so it's been an entire ordeal, okay? And people have been going back and forth about, freedom of speech. What should people be allowed to say? What should they not? Not just in context to just what celebrities are saying, but even some of these conversations that we're having on Twitter and how these things are going to impact us moving forward. Well, a couple of days ago, if you're not on Twitter, I would suggest being on Twitter, because to me, Twitter is the easiest, low maintenance, fastest way to get news, social media app uh, that exists. Okay. And so I particularly think, and it's probably my favorite social media, but Twitter. But a couple of days ago, there was this uproar on Twitter about, uh, oh, Twitter is ending, Twitter is over, this is the end of Twitter party. And even though I think that you had a lot of people that were mostly joking, uh, quote unquote, black Twitter, okay, loves to just take stuff and run with it and make a lot of jokes about whatever the trending topic is at the moment, which happens to actually be one of the joys of Twitter. So, of course, this was trending. Elon Musk was feeding right into it. And he mentions that now they're actually seeing more engagement than in previous months or years, possibly. So come to find out, not only has Twitter not ended, but it has in fact only at least appeared to become stronger in some ways, but more importantly, has recently reinstated some very controversial figures, okay? Including but not limited to Kanye West, Jordan Peterson, Project Veritas, Andrew Tate, and former President Donald Trump. Okay? So Twitter hasn't gone anywhere, but it's in actuality reinstated a lot of these people that have been banned or censored in the past. Now, with all of that said, Elon Musk goes on to say, because of course you had a lot of people ask about possibly one of the most controversial figures in America, that which is Alex Jones. And people were asking, okay, you've reinstated all of these other people. Are you going to reinstate Alex Jones? Let me read to you guys. Elon Musk response. My firstborn child died in my arms. I felt his last heartbeat. I have no mercy for anyone who would use the death of children for gain, politics, or fame. Now, this is the same Elon Musk that maybe like a week or two ago mentioned that Twitter was going to be like the most free speech platform and this, that, and the other. So let's start by talking about a few reasons why this is contradictory. Regardless of how you feel about the figure that is Alex Jones, first of all, Elon Musk did say and allude to the fact that the decisions as far as what would be acceptable on the app and non-acceptable will be done in a team atmosphere, in a diverse atmosphere. And the only reason he has given so far as it relates to Alex Jones is a very personal reason, okay? He goes on to tell the story about his child dying in his arms, this very emotional, no sense of a very I want to use the word logical here. I don't know if that's like the best word, but I will say that answer that he gave obviously skews more emotional, right? Like his personal experience. Um okay, I don't know how long I was frozen. The same argument can be made for that guy who was like at a school and there was a shooting at his school. I believe it was in Florida, if I'm not mistaken. And now his whole David Hogg, I think that's who I'm thinking of, right? So somebody could argue against that point and basically say the same thing. David Hogg uses his platform. He waits for these tragic things to happen to children, or he uses his experience to make a name and fame and recognition for himself, right? That could be said a lot of other ways I'm sure about other instances and other people. So the lack of consistency, the lack of transparency. I would argue there could even be better justification there if you wanted to say, oh, well, an actual investigation that went against Alex Jones, maybe pending investigations, pending lawsuits, civil lawsuits, and things like this. But even with that, and this is me trying to give Elon at least a little grace here, right? But even with that, then you have to weigh the fact that, okay, former President Trump was under investigation, for January 6th. Some people have said have incited an insurrection, was recently under investigation for the files that were taken, or removed from the White House. So the lack of consistency here, the lack of transparency, people are going to have a problem with that, especially when you're coming in saying, hey, I'm going to be so different. I'm going to allow speech, this and the other. And granted, some of these people have been allowed back, and that is, a great thing. But when you're leaving this wiggle room, or, when you're leaving this wiggle room and not really having a consistent system, or a consistent reasoning for, okay, this is what we won't allow, which more times than not should be actual criminal. I would contend that would be my position on it, right? So actual violence, actual threats, things like this. Now, where this gets tricky is, even as we know all of these things are happening with free speech, and you have some people kind of like pushing back, they do not want these filtered opinions and all these other things. Now you have some people, once again, because we've had a recent tragedy here in Colorado Springs with a mass shooter going into I believe, which was a LGBT bar. Now, ironically, you have more people calling for censorship after this shooting. They're trying to, even though last time I checked, to my understanding, we do not have an actual motive yet. Okay. I mean, of course, you can always speculate and say, oh, it must be this, it must be that, or whatever. But we don't have a motive yet. And you have some people saying, oh, well, this is inciting violence. This is violence. This is hate speech. It's the things that people are saying online in regards of, what I would call wanting to protect children, wanting to protect women in vulnerable positions or spaces, right? Some of those things that I may think are protection, freedom of speech, other people are calling, inciting violence, or calling hate speech, which I actually believe is a cop out. I believe it's a cop out. I feel like people only want to push this inciting violence narrative when it works to their benefit, right? So what I mean by that, I'll give you the perfect example. For 2 years, when unvaccinated people were being pushed around, being bullied, right? We even saw law enforcement going into using coercion and different tactics to remove or bully, unmasked people. We've seen, I mean, even up to the president almost make, I would say, enemies out of people that were, we had the misinformation dozen, right? Almost putting an X on these people's back making them in some ways an enemy of the state, telling you that it is your neighbor, it is your coworker that is making you ill, right? And really not completely giving this full picture, or maybe even downright lies of what was going on with COVID. I even just mentioned this on Twitter the other day. I was like, we now know, it is confirmed that ventilators were literally killing people. Ventilators were killing people. And it's just been swept under the rug. Nobody else says anything about it. Everybody has moved on. But if you looked early on during the, initial reaction to the pandemic, everybody was on national TV calling for ventilators, asking for ventilators. Why don't we have a national supply of ventilators? De Blasio was on TV every single day, talking about these ventilators. Now that we know they were killing people, it's been swept under the rug, right? So failures like that, instead of that same campaign of every single day asking for ventilators, instead of now saying this is where we failed, we need to apologize, we need to make this right in the public's eye, we need to talk about this just as much as we talked about the things that were actually hurting people. Did that happen? No. Instead, the media almost made enemies out of people that had questions or concerns. You had people going into grocery stores, coming into people's faces, trying to fight, trying to berate them, trying to, all these type of things for not masking and some of these other things. And I'm saying this to say, I'm really bringing this back up because if we're going to talk about inciting violence, right? When a Maxine Waters says, get up in their faces, right? But when you put that side by side of a Donald Trump saying, what did he say at the time? It's gonna come to me in a second, but it kind of had like a similar, we can't let them beat us, or we can't something like that, right? And it's like, I am not going to make excuses depending on the speech is a speech, that what is being said and what is being done, regardless of the person saying it or the person doing it, to try to pick and choose. Oh, this is now hate speech. Oh, this is now inciting violence, right? And that was one of the main problems originally at Twitter. You had people picking and choosing, which we obviously know was being skewed against certain individuals. I mean, it's just absolutely obvious at this point. So to try to hold, people responsible for saying, hey, like the whole because now they're saying, oh, the people calling LGBT groomers, and even there, right? Like how they try to conceptualize these things, it's a blanket statement, like, oh, it's the people calling the LGBT people groomers that is inciting violence, and violence is spiking up, against the LGBT community. And to conceptualize it like that, instead of making what people are saying, even whether you agree with it or not, valid to the point that you have some people actually concerned about safety issues, about children being pushed into ideologies, information, whatever you want to call it, at inappropriate times or ages, right? What the school is responsible for teaching and what the parents are responsible for. There could be a lot of different ways to look at it, but to just throw these things out or the bullying tactics, or the, oh, that's just inciting violence. Like, don't even listen to what this person has to say. And the fact of, and I talked about this a while ago, it has been problematic when we don't define what actual violence is. People understanding that an opinion or a debate or even something that you may not agree with, you may find inconsiderate or even sometimes repulsive, does not mean it equates to violence nor inciting violence. So we need to be aware of how we are conceptualizing these things, right? And when you look at where it gets weird, when you look at Parkland, Colorado Springs, Buffalo, New York, and a lot of these other places, that the shooters were in contact with law enforcement, right? Because I'm about to tie this back to the big pharma thing. You have the government blaming us, y'all killing people with the ventilators, right? Colorado Springs, Buffalo, New York, Parkland, you have actual law enforcement that had made previous contacts with these mass shooters. But now you want to blame the random people on Twitter with an opinion instead of saying, hey, what is actually going on here with our law enforcement? What is happening that these people are slipping through the cracks? What is happening that these things aren't adding up? We already have so many laws on the books. What is actually happening here? Let us take a deeper look at how our government is continuously failing us in so many ways across the board, right? But once you start to have these conversations, you become the enemy. If I say I do not trust the government to protect my life, there's no justification, there's no proof, there's very little history for me to be like, yes, I fully 100% support and trust this government with my life. I feel safe and protected. It's nothing there for me to have this opinion. But now if I say I want a firearm to protect my life, I have no proof of the government defending people that look like me, defending people that live or come from where I come from. I've not seen this happen. I've seen so many failures on the part of the government, the law enforcement. That does not make me an enemy. That does not mean I am inciting violence because I believe that people should be armed. That is not me inciting violence because I want to talk about ways that, okay, we should protect children, and these are the reasons why they want to control these conversations, because they don't want these differing opinions. They don't want people getting down to the truth. If we really were looking at these mass shootings, right? Really, an important link that you will often see is a lot of times these people are on psychotropic drugs and they've already had previous contact with law enforcement, right? I wasn't super hip and involved in like the Parkland case. I think that may have even been a little bit like maybe a few, I don't remember exactly when it happened. But I think that may have been before I started YouTube. I did not follow this recent Alex Jones case, right? But if you know some things about Alex Jones, some of his theories have been right. Now, he's responsible. The court found him civilly responsible for his current statements. We can argue whether the actual amount in restitution that he's being asked to pay is fair or not. However, in a court system, he was found civilly responsible. However, that doesn't change the fact that with so many things of what we've seen happening, some of the things not adding up, particularly even to this day, information about the Vegas shooting that was just swept under the rug. This elderly man takes all of this, equipment up the stairs, and he's up and back and down the stairs, and nobody's, seeing the shooting, and different people seeing different things or giving different accounts. So a lot of these things do have very suspicious, or at the very least questionable, details surrounding them that people should be able to talk about and question and work around, these ideas. But they don't want us to talk about these things. They don't want us to question these things. They always want us to go with the official narrative. One of the most recent examples, okay, let's take a look at this. So I don't know how many of you recently saw where Balenciaga, okay, has a ad with let's just go to it. So this is a Fox News article, and they basically hyperlinked somebody else's tweet about it. Okay. So Allison Centofonte says the Balenciaga ad is disgusting. Toddlers posing with a BDSM sex toy and alcohol, hiding in plain sight, a Supreme Court case involving a federal child porn law. Stop sexualizing kids to sell your ugly, overpriced crap. Okay, so let's take a look at these pictures. So here you see the teddy bear. You see the chain around or a lock around a teddy bear's neck, okay, with this child here not smiling. I mean, it's not giving a typical Target bubbly back to school ad, if I do say so myself. But you have that here. I believe here you have the child posing with, this looks to be wine glasses and a flask. And this is like a dog bowl here. I guess with the spikes would be considered more BDSM gear. Okay. And then you have these court documents here, which people zoomed in on, looked up the court documents, finding them to lead back to a case that was sexualizing children. Not only that, a federal child porn case. Not only that, there's a picture that I failed to pull up for this particular video. However, it is out there, another picture that Balenciaga tweeted or posted a few posts before this one, where a adult male had a key around his finger as he was kind of walking. So some people were suggesting that that key would be for the lock on this teddy bear, because it was just kind of like a randomly placed key. Now, obviously, people are trying to put two and two together there, and that is a theory, but these are high fashion designers. They have a team of people that work together, come up with these ideas, come up with these concepts. They are paid very well to do so. Okay, so this is not like just some intern throwing stuff together. Even the court documents would have had to been a very calculated move. Now, rightfully so, this has went viral on Twitter. Everyone, well, not everyone, but obviously a lot of people have been talking about this, okay? Now, a very interesting part about this is that Fox News and the New York Post earlier, just a few hours ago, when I tweeted this, were the only actual mainstream media news agencies to break this story. Let me say that again, okay? Just a few hours ago, Fox News and New York Post were two of the only mainstream news networks to cover this story. Your CNN, your MSNBC, your Vice, your business Insider. I don't know why Business Insider is coming to my mind. Vox, all of these other people that would love to jump on these controversial stories, okay, had not covered this. Independent out of UK, high and what is this? Highest Nobody, okay? I think ABC News, as I was going live, had just recently posted this. But all of the people that ironically could not stop talking about every single thing that Kanye West has done over the last couple of weeks, that Kyrie Irving has done, all of these people that care so much about the White Lives Matter shirt have shown to care very little about these very suggestive hints, okay, at child pedophilia, pornography, sexuality, whatever you want, however you want to conceptualize this. The contrast is startling, okay? Absolutely, I mean, painstakingly startling. The links that people in Hollywood, in DC, will go to protect certain images, to protect certain brands, to not have certain conversations. Y'all also have to remember, Balenciaga dropped Kanye West for allegedly anti-Semitic statements. Now, this same company goes on to be very hush-hush about their apology, not even posting it on their main page, throwing up some half apology in their story or your Instagram story. Oh, we're going to look into this. This is not an accident. I'm not going to sit here by any means and try to make Elon some hero. I still, you got to trust these people as far as you can throw them. Let's not forget now. However, him reinstating people, and I don't even think many people notice, but Elon and Twitter are currently working on getting rid of pornography on Twitter. Now, if you know anything about Twitter, if you've been on Twitter, you know Twitter has had a big child pornography. If you know anything about Twitter, Twitter has had a significant issue with pornography in the past. Okay. I mean, it would be nothing. You could just be perusing the app and would just generally just oops on some pornography. I mean, just very readily available. And now that he is trying to rid Twitter of said pornography, you have very little people talking about it, probably very few people even knowing about it. And many of these news agencies, journalists, definitely not talking about it. I think that within itself, is something to be said about that. And ironically, Twitter is the one moving this story forward about Balenciaga. Twitter is the one talking about this. And this is why it's so important that we maintain the ability to speak. Because I promise you guys, there are so many stories that they would be okay hiding from us, suppressing, censoring. Okay. The Hunter Biden story is just now, 2 years later, being authenticated. Did I say that right? No, I'm trying to say. 2 years later, rewind, all of the mainstream media news outlets, these are supposed to be investigative journalists. Oh, well, we can't confirm if the laptop is true. Only the New York Post. The New York Post, from what I can tell, seems to be pretty consistent here recently. The Hunter Biden story is just now being confirmed. Like, do y'all understand that they're just now being on some oops, our bad? And even with that, the retraction will never go as far as the original story. Think about that. Regardless of how you feel, it should not be a point where the media is specifically picking and choosing which stories they want to suppress. This is why what Elon Musk is doing over at Twitter is so important. Do y'all understand what I'm telling you? Twitter is what has allowed this story to grow to the magnitudes that it has. And keep in mind, if Elon had not recently taken over Twitter, we don't know what would become of a story like this. We don't know. I don't know if some of you guys remember, but it was just a year ago when the trackers, the pages that were keeping up with the Epstein trial, the Epstein and the Maxwell trial, were constantly getting deleted from Twitter. Every few days, getting deleted. Actual practicing doctors who had questions and concerns about the COVID vaccines were getting deleted and removed from Twitter. Like, and when you really think about it and you watch what's happened over the last few years, it's concerning. It is concerning. It is concerning when a Kanye West goes on camera and he says they stopped my Apple Pay from working, because of an idea, because of the things that I said. I haven't hurt anybody. I haven't drugged anybody. I haven't, none of that. I haven't been physically violent, assaulted anybody. And for words, things that I was saying, they've now blocked my Apple Pay, right? And we can remember a couple of weeks ago, PayPal was literally saying, hey, if we find you saying any of these things on your social media, we're going to penalize you. So people have real concerns. Information is just coming out about the heart attacks and the myocardial myocarditis. Y'all know what I'm trying to say. Heart problem. Okay. Going on with the vaccines, specifically for males age 18 to 39. We have to be able to discuss these things. And you actually have people saying, "Oh, it's the free speech. It's the free speech that's inciting violence. It's the free speech that is inciting violence." I would argue it's the suppression and the censorship of speech that incites violence. First of all, you're going to have people that are going to be being pushed in their echo chambers, because the only thing that's going to happen is if you are pushing these people off Twitter and off these other platforms, the main platforms, for an idea, for things that you may not agree with, that are non-violent things, but you just happen to not agree with them, and they're being removed from Twitter, they're going to go find other groups, other places, other platforms with people that may think like them, but are going to definitely skew more extreme, because you're pushing them into becoming outliers. You're pushing them out of the main sphere, right? Out of the public square to be banished to these extreme, outliers. And I would argue, when you don't have anybody to be like, "I saw this opinion. Nah, that makes a little bit more sense." Or maybe this is more nuanced than I originally thought. Or I don't agree with this, but it's not harboring anger because you're pushing me into these fringe communities. And so when people think that it's just about, uh, you know, "Oh, you just want to be hateful. Oh, you just want a license to say anything and everything that you've been waiting to say," are you going to have some ridiculous people, that try to push the boundaries? Are you going to have people that troll? Are you going to have people that try to say the most ridiculous things to get attention? And are you going to genuinely have some awful, just not good, the best people? Yes, you're going to absolutely have instances of that. And I wouldn't undermine or try to deny that. However, we should not allow these people, these few people, I would contend, to be the reason and the justification for censoring and suppressing people that are actually more nuanced, actually debating and putting their opinions into the town square in good faith, making good faith arguments. We cannot allow bad apples to smear the whole bunch. And that is what's being allowed to happen. You're having people say, "Oh, because extremism could exist, or because this person may be extreme," right? "You also shouldn't be able to say what you want to say, or I'm going to put you in the same box as this person." And all we're doing is hurting the potential for keeping people safe, for expanding these conversations, for picking up where the mainstream media and the government has failed us time and time again, where they've lied and where they've suppressed information to push their own agendas. And if this Balenciaga thing does not make it clear to you that these mainstream media platforms, other than the New York Post and the Fox News, has been very slow, if at all they have even commented on something that is actually a viral topic right now, and very few people are talking about it. Very few of these mainstream media, but they were so quick to talk about a freaking White Lives Matter shirt. And I am not saying that that's not important or people don't deserve to talk about that just as much. Talk about whatever you like, but to purposefully suppress and censor certain stories to protect certain entities, agendas, people, whatever you want to call it, for people that try to pretend like it's not questionable, is just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. Racer X. I think he added another 9 to his name recently. Said, oh, just call me the racer. He said, thank you so much for the $20 super chat. They will use any means for or unfair to trip you up. The powers that be will use every tragedy to advance their agenda. They will always conflate the good with evil in order to further their evil plots. This is a perfect way to sum that up, right? To put in a box the same people that genuinely have concern, good faith arguments, good reason why they would have questions about certain agendas, ideologies, policies, any of these things, to try to lump them in with people that are actually physically violent is absolutely absurd. It is absurd. And they do that as an easy way to smear people, as an easy way to, a easy smear tactic. That way, if I label you, I don't have to address you. If I label you, I have an easy excuse for banishing you, for making other people not listen to you. And it's interesting because it reminds me of a post that I posted recently on Instagram, maybe like a week or two ago. And I said that it's ridiculous and it's absurd how they try to paint responsible gun owners as being okay with criminals, right? Like, oh, you own a gun, or you don't believe we're going about gun control the right way, so you must be down with the criminals. You must be cool with crime. But the truth is that responsible gun owners, everyday, hardworking people, just everyday people, are actually more against crime because we have actually accepted and become okay with the potential of immediate consequences. We actually think that murder and rape are so bad, so awful, so evil, so unbelievable that we feel like people have the should have the immediate ability to protect their lives in that moment. So to try to paint these people as cool or down with the criminals is absurd. Is absurd. And this is just one example of how they use these smear tactics, right? Because you own the tool, because you talk about the tool, we're just going to put you in this box over here because you're just like them, and we don't really want to discuss it. We really want to censor you for real, because I know it's been some de-ranking going on over here on these platforms. But anyway, okay. But if we just write you off as a gun nut, as an extremist, as a militant, a black militant, as a white supremacist, as a whatever other name they want to give you, right? That's all we have to do. We smear you and we can make people not listen to you and we can be done with it, right? But then I come in and I have the ability to tell somebody that maybe on the fence or maybe not understand my position or maybe has never had the ability to even hear my position because they've been pushed in the echo chamber. I've been censored or whatever other reason, right? Some of these ideas don't get into other spheres. And I come along and say, hey, I'm against crime, murder, rape, robbery, uh, all of these other things just as much as you, if not more. You know, so this is why when we see what's going on with Twitter, regardless, even some of the things that I care about, right? Like, so for example, going back to the protecting kids thing, we can be talking about the let's say drag queen story hour that's coming back in the news, not the official news cycle, but people been talking about it a little bit more lately, right? I'm not particularly into it. It's not something, if parents want to take their children there and it's outside of what the actual government is doing and it's on some this your free time, whatever, and parents are doing that and there's nothing illegal happening there or Lou, I mean, that's the parents' free choice. But how my personal opinion of when the government gets involved, if they try to do it at a public school, public library, that may be something different, right? But my bigger point is, as much as some of those things I don't agree with, and that's probably wasn't even the best point. Let me pick something that I feel a little bit stronger about. Okay, let's pick the Dulaney guy, right? Or whatever. The person that was just at the White House and was featured on some Twitter page for a magazine talking about my Barbie pouch and was really talking about tampons. And so this is a person that was born male. This was a person that was born male, but identifies as a female. Now, I'm never saying there's no difference between a man and a woman, a male and a female. I am not lying to make anybody feel better. I'm not doing that. I'm not going to pretend that, oh, when you're born, the doctor just what do they say? The doctor observes, your gender and your sex and all that. I'm never doing that. I'm not lying, right? I'm not, no. And then you have people that are validating this in terms of what I believe to be replacing women in certain instances, right? Because the next thing you know, you're on a cover or you're being covered by a woman magazine. That I don't agree with. However, you have never, not once, you can't find no clip, no tweet, no post, no nothing of me ever calling for, asking for, suggesting anything for that person to be censored, for that person to be suppressed, for that person to be not allowed a voice, for that person to not have a Twitter page or a TikTok page, for that person to not be heard, for that person to be canceled or banned from the public sphere. You have not seen it. Never. Not once. And so regardless of how I feel or believe about what this person believes to be their identity, that is an adult. That is an adult. If an adult chooses to be what I even could say to be delusional, they have the right to do so, and do so mostly in peace. I have no problem with that. And the same way that person can say, oh, I think on this and my Barbie pouch and whatever else, I want the same ability to be like, no, I don't agree with that. I'm not down with that. And this is why. And we move on. Now, when the government starts getting involved and the government starts to get in on the lie and the government validates what we clearly know not to be true, to the point where it starts to actually start going into the schools, start going into the prisons, start going into the homeless shelters, then that's a different thing. When you're starting to now affect the, you know, general public, right? So as much as I may not agree with some of those things that are not being said, I would support people that I don't agree with having the ability to speak, because that's your right. That's your right as a human to do so. If you, the line for me is going to be when you specifically call for violence, abuse, anything else directly against children. That's a whole different ball game that does not fly, for the reasons of this is actual violence, this is actual abuse, this is actually a threat against other people's human rights. How that's not the line for most people, how that's not the line for the general public, how that's not the line for people that pretend to say they care about activism or rights or freedom or liberty or being progressive and all these other things. It's just crazy to me. It's just crazy to me. So, but anyway, thank you so much for the super chat. Thanks to everybody that tapped in. Go over to RhondaMary.com. All gear is now 30% off going into the weekend. There will be an automatic discount at checkout. You can grab a Unicorns Fairy Dust and AR-15s type of girl hoodie, tee, as well as I have anti-statist, entertainers are not leaders, there's no freedom without medical freedom, sweatshirts, hoodies, tees, all of that is over there. So go to RhondaMary.com. If you are not following me on Twitter, where I'm on there talking noise all through the week, especially now, go follow me over there. I am RhondaMary. I'm also on Instagram, Rhonda_Mary. And I now have Facebook. I'm trying to get it popping. Y'all go over there to Facebook and help me out. I'm like trying to get back into the swing of things of Facebook. So I don't know. But Facebook /I am RhondaMary. So make sure y'all following me on those. Let's connect. Let's keep in contact. Also on RhondaMary.com, I have my email list. So if we are ever, my page is ever deleted, anything like that, make sure we always are in contact. If you are not subscribed to this channel, make sure you go ahead and subscribe to this channel, as well as hit the thumbs button below. Help this video get out and support free speech, because sometimes I just be saying what I want to say, and that's what we be doing and we be going on. All right, y'all have a good holiday weekend. We'll be talking soon. Bye.